and it helps us also maintain that aura of equity and fairness to everybody. At the appropriate time, our moderator will ask you for your questions, because this is really about direct access for you to our leaders and candidates. So your questions are really important to us, and important, I think, to that civil discourse and political discourse around the state. So how do you do that? There will be a City Club staffer who will be roving the room with a mic. She will come to you if you raise your hand and indicate that you have a question. When you're ready to ask your question, and the emphasis is on the question, not statement part, so please be sure that you actually have a question. We'll ask you to state your name, state your question, and refer it to a specific candidate. If you don't have a specific candidate in mind, then our moderator will assign it to a candidate. We'll accommodate as many audience questions as possible. And again, please, no speeches. Please limit your remarks to your question. And now it's a great pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, a great partner for us who really keeps us sharp and we love to work with, and that's Joni Balter, who is newly Assistant Political Editor at the Seattle Times. Joni?
Hi, everybody. Hi. Hello, everyone. At this point, I'd like to ask the candidates to take their appointed seats. And I'm going to sit here because I flunked the height test for the Microsoft podium, and I have all these papers I have to manage. So it's kind of like when you go to Disneyland and you don't hit the thing, you don't get to go on the ride. That's how that goes. So while they're sitting down, I'll just say good afternoon to everyone. Thanks so much to City Club for inviting me to moderate this debate in what has to be the liveliest congressional race in our state this election cycle. I don't think there's a maybe about that. As most of you know, Washington is not swing state enough to have all those presidential ads and candidate visits. Well, except for those late night forays to the Northwest ATMs. Nice traffic jam last night and this morning. But for people who like their politics hot and feisty, the first congressional district race has something for everyone. The new first district is very, very politically balanced, we're told. You know, as the folks were working on the redistricting, they really drew these numbers down to the thinnest little slices there. The district reaches from something like this campus to the Canadian border. So let's get to it. The first question I want to say to you all is not your standard opening, this is why I want to be a candidate kind of a question. I want to ask each of you to think about for a second what one issue you would like to be identified with and why. 1 minute each, and we're gonna change the order as we go, but we'll start alphabetically this time. Darcy.
It seems to me that the biggest threat we face in this country is actually a fundamental threat to our democracy. Citizens United has made worse a problem that we already had with money having disproportionate influence in our politics. And for a country that is founded on the basic premise of government of, by, and for the people, it's incredibly troubling to watch as multimillionaires and billionaires try to buy congressional races, buy the presidency, take over our government at every level. If there is one thing that I would like to be identified with, it's this idea that we need to restore government of, by, and for the people, not government of, bought, and paid for by large corporations and multimillionaires.
Hi, I really would love to be known for standing up for the middle class and getting our economy moving again. Many families are struggling right now, and this is very personal for me. My dad lost his job when I was young, and my parents never got back on track financially. We moved all over the country, and when I graduated from college, my parents moved in with me because they didn't have another place to go. Many families are going through the same situation right now, and I was able to get a great education and go to college because of student loans, financial aid, work-study programs, and that great education helped me to have a great career and be able to be in a position to take care of my family. And that's what everyone wants, and that's what everyone's struggling for right now. And I'm not sure if I were growing up now, I could tell that same story. So that's why I'm running for Congress, but I also think that's the issue that I hear at the door every day and that we need to fight for.
No, I'm running. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
I'm running because Our country is broken. Congress is broken by partisanship and brinkmanship. Everyone's trying to one-up one another. And we're in a crisis where we need to have someone who can bring people together. Now, I want to be known as someone who can bring civility back into politics. I've done in Olympia, where I brought Republicans and Democrats together to create a bipartisan budget that protects the most vulnerable and protects education. I want to bring that to the other Washington. Now's the time to do that. We have record unemployment. Recession is taking away people's homes. Now's the time to be bold. A lot of people talk about being independent. A lot of people talk that they'll go against their own party's special interests. I can tell you, and you can look at my record, I have done that on numerous occasions. And I'm willing to do that again to help the people in the 1st Congressional District.
John.
I'd like to be known as one who believes that the solutions to the issues in this country and the problems this country faces are found in the people, not in bigger government programs. I've always believed that if we keep government interference in our lives and government influence at a minimum, if we keep regulations at a minimum, taxes only at a necessary level, and we set free the creative juices of the American people and allow them to innovate and allow them to create and allow them to go out and create businesses and provide goods and services for their fellow man, that it would create opportunities and jobs for people. And all Americans, and frankly, the world is better off. I think that's the crux of the debate in this election cycle, whether you believe in big government programs and more of them, more of the same, or whether you believe that the solutions are found in the people. Thank you.
I want to be known as somebody who is a unique candidate, who is different. We need a different kind of leadership in Washington. This country provided me the opportunity to earn education and become a successful business owner and live the American dream. And that dream is fading away for a lot of hardworking families, and Congress has failed this country and people because of their bogus policies. We have 20 million Americans out of work, and 50 million Americans can't afford health insurance, and yet we are the richest country in the world. So we, as a citizen, really need to stand up and say enough is enough. We cannot continue to elect same politician again and again and expect different results. I want my kids to have the same opportunity that I have. So I'm running for Congress. I'm not a politician, and I have not taken a special interest PAC money because I believe PAC is corrupting our political system. And I stood with my principal to oppose coal train in Bellingham because that is the right thing to do.
Well, we absolutely need to rebuild our economy and help all of those families in our country who are struggling. And I'd like my role in that to be continuing to focus on expanding access to affordable, high-quality health care. We still need to deal with this issue. The Affordable Care Act was a great start, but we've got to continue. Lack of access to health insurance is driving middle-class families into bankruptcy, and that is just wrong. Now, I've been very public about my family's struggles with health insurance and what it was like watching my sister-in-law not be able to focus during the time she had left on being with her loved ones, but on how she was going to pay her medical bills. But this issue is personal to so many others as well. I've knocked on over 5,200 doors, and I hear day after day after day that families are struggling with lack of access to health insurance. That's what I'd like to be known for.
Thank you. We're now going to do mic switch. Okay. We have specific questions now for each of you. You're going to get 90 seconds this time. We're going to reverse the order, so we'd be starting with you, Laura. And my question for you is, you have a proven ability to win in a district that isn't necessarily favorable to Democrats. How do your politics line up with the new 1st Congressional District?
Well, thank you for recognizing that proven track record. I did in 1998 beat a 5-year Republican incumbent in a 42% Democratic performing district and held on to that seat 2 more times in a district that never got better than 45% Democratic performance. And I think that my ability I did that because my constituents knew that I was always going to listen to them and be thoughtful. I got known for the fact that if you called the legislative hotline, you got a call back from me personally. And if you emailed me, you got an email back from me personally. I think that my politics line up very well with the new congressional district. It's a district that is pro-choice. I am firmly pro-choice. It is a district that narrowly but does support marriage equality, which is an issue that I have been working on since the beginning of my time in the legislature. And it's a district that wants to see support for business. I took a tough vote that in some quarters I am still paying for to help Boeing, give Boeing what they needed in order to keep the 787 here. And while you may disagree with some of the policies that were put in place to do that, I can't imagine the shape that Washington State would be in if the 787 had been built anywhere other than our state. So I would say that my politics line up very well, as does my personal connection to voters.
Darshan, this is a crowded field of Democrats. Did I get your name right? That's what you're laughing at. Okay. How are you going to cut through and make your story compelling for voters?
Actually, I like my district, and I like so many of us running. And this is how the democracy should work, folks. When there's open seat, we should encourage all of us to run for seat. So I'm very perfectly happy with that. I'm a regular guy. I'm like one of you, and I've been going out, door knocking, talking to people, and it's a pretty sad state of affairs that our country has. People have given up faith in their government. People have given up faith in their leadership because politicians are not working. We all have to ask ourselves and our leaders that if they're doing their job in Washington, why are we in so much mess today? So the way I can cut through is going out, reaching out, talking to as many voters as possible, and they are looking at me as hey, this is a guy who came from nowhere, one of the poorest country, and America provided that opportunity for him. He lived the American dream. What happened to that American dream? He's a reminder of that American dream for us. So we need to elect him, we need to send him to Congress so that our next generation, future generation, we can say that American dream is still alive today. And he's a guy, he's not a professional politician, he's among like us. He has refused to take a political action committee money because that has corrupted our political system. And he's somebody who stood up on his values and principle to oppose the coal train. And he loves this country, he loves the people, this country provided the opportunity, and he is one of the guys that we need to take district by district throughout the states. So my candidate.
I'm going to call time here.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Goes fast.
Yeah.
It does. It goes really fast. John, this is a true swing district, and you're the only Republican. In 2010, you self-identified as a Tea Partier. How are you going to connect with independents and moderates whose views aren't in line with yours?
Well, I don't know if I self-identified with the Tea Partier or the press did that for me. The issues in this district, whether you're at the north end in Whatcom County or down here in Redmon, in Kirkland, Medina, Clyde Hill, are not so different. People care about great education for their children. They want to be able to run their businesses. They want a good job. They want limited government. They don't want excessive taxation. That is from one end of the district to the other. Doesn't matter whether you're a dairy farmer in Whatcom County or whether you're in manufacturing or whether you're in high tech. And while we're talking about the Tea Party, let's understand a little bit who those people are. Those people basically are Republicans, Democrats, independents who like limited government, minimal taxation, and want to live their lives basically free.
Thank you. Steve, you touched on this a little bit, but how will your time in the state legislature inform your approach to this job?
Well, for one, having the experience to be able to work on both sides of the aisle, to make compromises and at times stand up against your own party. A lot of times you have to go against your own party if you want to get certain reforms done. In my history in the state legislature, I've went against the most powerful labor union in the state of Washington, and I went against the most powerful business association in the state of Washington to do the right thing. You know, it's hard to do that, but luckily I'm in a district, which is also the swing district, the 44th legislative district, where we have cows, we have BMWs, we have Microsoft workers, we have janitors, and they're all in one area. And luckily, I've been born and raised there. I know what's going on. And during my time in the legislature, I've been able to work closely with the people in my district, especially those in the middle class and working families. Mostly because, well, I am middle class. $55,000 a year, I drive a Ford Focus that barely works sometimes. You know, I have 3 kids, one's with special needs. But while candidates talk about fighting for the middle class and fighting for working families, hey, I'm with you on that one. I'm one of them.
Thank you. Susan, the establishment is very favorable to your candidacy, but the general public doesn't really know you. How do you plan to build grassroots support and reach out to voters in the 1st District?
Well, we have, built a very strong campaign, and that campaign has been built on going throughout the district and listening to people and hearing their stories. And that's been incredibly important to me because that's really what this job is all about. I've been up from Lummi Island to Linden, all the way down through Skagit and Snohomish counties and right here in King County. And I can tell you the #1 thing on everyone's mind is the economy and jobs. And we have a very rich conversation about that because that's the struggle that my family went through, and that's what we need to focus on. And people want to know that we have someone who brings experience to the table to address these issues. That experience is understanding what it takes to create a job, understanding how our innovation economy in this region works, understanding how the public sector and the private sector can work together. And I've been a small business person. I've been a large business person. Even spoken in this room before. I have run the Department of Revenue for the state, so I understand the public sector side. I've worked in microfinance, helping people get back on their feet. And it's not just having a great idea, but understanding what it takes to implement that great idea and to get the results that you need. That is incredibly important. And right now, Congress, there's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of action. We have a lot of rhetoric going on, but not a lot of results. And the support we're going to get throughout this campaign and in Congress is because everyone wants to see action and get a return on the investment that they're making in their government. And that's what I'm going to fight to do.
Thank you. Darcy, you said in a recent interview that politics is more about raw power than crafting the best policy statements. Are you going to D.C. to be a public policy maker or a politician?
I'm going to stand up because I can see everybody's craning their heads. I actually was at a conference in which I made that statement and using PowerPoint, you'll be glad to know. My history as a Microsoft employee was showing through. And I talked a little bit about how my first job as a programmer was at Lotus Development Corporation, and you all were kicking our tookuses. Because Lotus was playing the wrong game and Microsoft was playing the right one. Lotus thought that it was about having the best feature set. And Microsoft, I was working on Smart Suite, which was the competitor to Microsoft Office at the time. And Microsoft understood that the most important feature for any Office suite was the ability to exchange documents with other people. So they bootstrapped adoption inside of large corporations, and then everybody who wanted to exchange documents with those people used Microsoft Office, and so on and so forth, right? Network effect was more important than feature set. Microsoft won because they understood what the game really was. Democrats have a tendency to be the Lotus of politics. We have a tendency to think that if we write the best policies, we will win, but that's not actually how this works. The way that this works is if you have economic power, if you have political power, if you have the courts and the police behind you, if you have cultural power and you're the one telling the stories in people's heads, if you have network power and you can communicate with millions and your opponents cannot, then you win. And if we want good policies, if we want to fix the economy, if we want to fix healthcare, we need to play the game that is really being played.
Thank you. We're going to do another question for all of you in alphabetical order. You have 90 seconds, so Darcy, you would go first on this. And we'd like to ask each of you, every candidate can represent one side or the other. But you know what voters want to know? They want to know how and when you can work together. Tell us and think of a specific issue where you take a different stance from your party and how you would act differently if it came to a vote.
So there are two that come readily to mind. One is around Afghanistan. I helped, while I was in DC working with the Congressional Progressive Caucus, build a bipartisan coalition around ending the war in Afghanistan. Not just progressive Democrats, but also Republican Congressman Walter Jones, the guy who decided French fries needed to be called freedom fries in the House cafeteria. Republican Congressman Ron Paul, Grover Norquist endorsed the plan that we put together to end the war in Afghanistan. Ann Coulter has said nice things about my plan to end the war in Afghanistan. Because we were able to bring people together and say, it makes no sense that we're spending $100 billion a year on a military presence in a country whose gross domestic product is $14 billion a year, where the CIA has said there are fewer than 100 al-Qaeda operatives left. It makes no sense, and it's time for us to end it. We can build those kinds of cross-party coalitions when we have folks from both sides of the aisle who are willing to come to the table in good faith. The other thing is a bill that's actually coming to the floor shortly in the House of Representatives, which is I helped do some of the organizing around the bill to audit the Fed, which was a joint effort of Congressman Alan Grayson on the left and Congressman Ron Paul on the right. Again, it is possible for us to build those coalitions if people are willing to come together in good faith, and I am delighted to do so.
Same question to you, Susan. And we do have a rule here. You can stand, you can sit, you can do whatever each person would like to do.
I think one of the big issues that our party hasn't done a good job on so far is financial services reform. I think that we haven't gotten to a place where people have a financial system they can trust. We've seen that recently with what's happened with JP Morgan. And I believe we should put in place what I call a modern version of Glass-Steagall, separating investment and commercial banking so that we do have a system where people's savings accounts are protected. That is a piece of legislation that has been talked about but hasn't been passed, and we need to get behind that, and we need a financial system that we all can believe in. I also say, as part of kind of creating that coalition and getting support from folks to solve issues, we need to talk to each other. I actually think there are a lot of things that people agree on. I was knocking on the door in Concrete about a month ago and met a man who said, do you support the Affordable Care Act? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I'm not going to vote for you then. And I said, okay, but tell me what about it don't you like? Do you disagree with people with pre-existing conditions getting coverage? And he said, well, no, that part's okay. And I said, what about kids up to 26 staying on their parents' plans? And he said, no, that's okay. And I said, what about the mandate? Do you think people should be able to get coverage if they walk into a hospital? And he said, well, of course they should. And so fundamentally, on all those tenets, we all agree. He just disagreed on the name of the bill and the way it was coming about because he had heard so many things. He was a veteran. He was told he's going to lose his health care benefits. So we need to talk to each other because if we pass what we agree on, we'd make incredible progress.
Do you remember the question?
Yes, you can say it again, John.
Just open.
I want to repeat that question. Yeah.
Do you want me to say it?
Yes, I do, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, this really gets at
Get a
the
call for
idea
it? No,
that
sorry,
every
go ahead.
candidate can represent one side or the other. And what we're looking for here are specifics of how you would be able to go to Washington, D.C. and be able to work with the other party and how you would conduct yourself and give us an example of how you do differ from your party.
Certainly. I've done it all the time. I like to call myself a radical moderate, an extreme centrist, if you will. But I do believe in my values of my party of opportunity and equality for all. It's one of the reasons why I worked across the aisle to pass a bipartisan budget while at the same time protecting the most vulnerable. You know, it was tough to pass certain things that there was resistance on, including my own district. The domestic partnership, R71, failed in my district. I pushed it forward. I sponsored marriage equality. I voted for it, and we went through. But on opposing things, on my own party, K through 12 health insurance, consulting health insurance for teachers, unemployment insurance reform, workers' compensation reform. I'm willing to do that in Nether Washington. I'm willing to talk about entitlements, means testing of Social Security. We probably are going to have to do that because we can't sustain that. We cannot sustain this anymore. Caps on discretionary spending. We have to talk about that. We have to talk about reforming government. I have done it in the other I've done it in this Washington, and I'm willing to do it in the other Washington.
John Koster, do you have an issue where you took a different stance from your party and how you might act differently if you were sent to Congress?
In 1995, I was elected to the legislature. We had 62 members in the Republican House, so we could pretty much do what we chose to do. But I just want to point out that we did health care reform, welfare reform, regulatory reform. We rolled back $1.2 billion worth of taxes in Washington State at the time when we had a Democrat governor and a Democrat Senate. I also served, along with one of the other members up here, in a 49-49 split in the House, and actually got the first bill passed out of the House and on the governor's desk. And quite frankly, you can't do that if you're not working with the other side of the aisle. One specific bill that I got a little crosswise with my caucus on was, and I don't remember the particulars of the benefits, but it had to do with benefits for firefighters, and I supported that bill. And I took a little flack from some of the folks in my caucus, but I felt it was absolutely the right thing to do. So it happens occasionally. We can fight for our principles. What I'm saying is we can work together to find solutions. We don't have to compromise our principles, but we do have to find solutions. We do have to move forward in this country and make decisions.
Thank you.
So I want to go to Congress not representing the party. I want to go to the Congress representing the people. And I have taken a stand that appeals to a lot of progressives. You know, my upbringing has already appealed to a lot of moderates. I'm getting a lot of support. And a lot of Republicans. A lot of Republicans are supporting me also because they see me as somebody coming from nowhere and worked very hard, lifted himself up from poverty, and lived the American dream. So this is the kind of guy that we need. So I want to be that loud voice going to Congress. What we need is we need to throw that ideology from Republican side and Democratic side. What we need to tell everybody in Congress is that this is the greatest country. We have greatest values. And we need to put people back to work. So the things that we have been doing is not working. So I want to go there, and then I want to find like-minded congressmen, senators to form a caucus, new caucus, and then build that caucus to bring about the change. So my candidacy is not just to represent one district in Congress, but we need to take one by one every district throughout the state, bring in new people, fundamentally change the way we do business in Washington. And we need to be that paradigm shift that we need. Because ideology is always going to come into play, and there's always going to be disagreement between the Republicans and Democrats. So we need a different kind of leadership, new leadership, somebody different to go and do the work for us.
Thank you very much. Laura.
You know, I can't tell you one big marquee issue, but I'm sitting down here jotting down tons of times when I've worked across the aisle. When I was in the legislature, former state senator Jim Horn, Republican, brought together all of the members of the King County delegation, Republican and Democrat, to come together to say King County needs to get its fair share of transportation funding. And we all worked together to do that. I saw former state representative, my former seatmate, Toby Nixon, Republican, in the audience, current Kirkland City Councilman. He and I went up against law enforcement and almost everybody else with a constituent issue where we had the child of constituents who was run over by an off-duty state patrol officer. And there were questions about who was drunk, who was not drunk, evidence that was lost. And Toby and I spent weeks trying to pass a bill to require everybody at the scene of such an accident to undergo a breath alcohol test. When we were in the 49-49 tie, we had to work together on a whole host of issues. And one issue that I can think of that popped into mind where members of my caucus got up and were fighting vehemently before we went out onto the floor was an R&D tax credit, specifically for the software industry. And I went out there as the first blue badge ever to be elected to the Washington State House of Representatives. I was there and I said, I'm voting yes, because this is important to this industry and to my constituents over the objections of some of the Democratic caucus members.
Thank you. Okay, so now is the City Club famous, I think it is, lightning round. And so get those cards out. For you folks, I hope you can see this. So hold them up high. Hold them up high. Arm pain. We're going for arm pain. And all of you stand up for this, I guess, because it goes kind of fast. And we have a nice, vigorous audience here. Okay, so these, no clapping, please. No clapping, waving, the whole thing, you know. So these are yes/no questions and waffle. So yes is green, red is no, and yellow is waffle. I personally think it should have a picture of a waffle on it, but that's for next time. So here we go. Hold the cards so folks can see them. Question number 1, do you think same-sex couples should be able to get married? Cards high so folks can see them. Okay, a moment for that. Okay, thank you. Do you support legalizing marijuana?
The initiative that's on the ballot?
Oh.
Yes, the boss says so, and that's what it means. Okay. Do you support charter schools? Whoa, okay.
Get on one side, so you gotta flip it around.
You actually have to turn that.
I think they know. I think they know.
Colors and we're doing
exactly.
this is like those parking
Well, you
lots
know,
where
we
there's
got our
several
names.
ways to remember. Okay.
I worked in the Army, not Microsoft. So
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Do you support the DREAM Act?
Oh.
Cards. All right. Would you vote to increase the eligible age for Social Security?
Yeah, I'm like that.
We're almost ready for some syrup here for the waffles. But do you support the Supreme Court's ruling upholding the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act? You don't like to yell at the Supreme Court? Okay, that's
At
good.
least one, huh?
Okay.
We can work on that, huh? We can work on that then. Now you got to do it.
Okay. Did everyone get a picture? Okay. Do you support the Citizens United ruling allowing corporations to give unlimited amounts of money to third parties in campaigns?
Support.
Support. Is that up? Okay. Okay. Everybody's up. Okay. All right. This one's going to be fun. Do you support raising taxes on those making $250,000 and more? Okay. Do you support raising taxes on those making $500,000 a year and more? And one more, just because it's good, it's fun. $1 million and more.
What's your number, Don?
Excuse me, I know.
Fundamental tax reform. Let's get with it. Stop dividing
Right,
people.
sidebars here. Okay. President Obama has said troops will be out of Afghanistan by the end of 2014. Is that soon enough? Cards up in the air.
Don't know.
No.
I don't know. That's
Don't
not
know
it.
is
agree with it,
the,
but you never
the
know what
unmarked
happens, you know,
waffle.
right?
Okay.
You never know.
Many of you have filed to run in
Political
the.
decision.
Whoops, what's going on? Did you put 2 on?
Who was talking here?
That is not allowed. That is not allowed, we'll just say. Okay. One more, come on, hang in there. It's gonna be good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Many of you have filed to run in the special election to replace Jay Inslee. You'd be there for about, a month before the newly elected representative takes office. If you were elected in the special election, would you vote somehow to avoid the automatic budget cuts?
I'm not running.
Yeah, probably waffle.
Okay, you're the only one that's
I'm the only
not.
one.
You're the only one that's not, but, so all waffles? All right. That worked,
Yeah, well, that's
okay.
it.
Okay, so we're at the point where I want to get the audience to think about their involvement. After the next 2 rounds, we're going to go to the audience questions, so get those ready. Jessica Jones will be roving with a microphone. And we do ask that you state your name and not give a statement, but ask a question. And we also ask that you say who the question is to, because it'll go better if we're not running up and down the list of all the folks here. All right, so back to the sort of 90 seconds each here question, and we'll start with Laura Ruderman. What did you learn in the nonprofit sector that will inform your decisions in Congress?
That's a great question. I think that, well, I'll tell you, where my most significant job was raising money for Seattle Mental Health, now Sound Mental Health, the largest community mental health provider in King County. And when I really got down on the ground and looked at, and most of SMH's clients are Medicaid or somehow other state or government funded, at the restrictions that are put on how our mental health professionals they're restricted about how they can treat patients. For example, for teenagers with mental illness, it's often really useful to take them out and play basketball and talk to them while you're engaged in another activity, or take them out for ice cream. But Medicaid won't pay for that time. They'll only pay if you're sitting in the office talking face to face. We're not getting our teenagers, our low-income teenagers, the best mental health treatment because of that. So all of those restrictions on how we limit people, professionals, from making their best judgment, we need to be able to, and we see the result of what happens when folks don't get adequate mental health funding. Those kinds of making sure that the government is helping the folks who need help, but allowing professionals to make their judgment. I think we need to really look at that when we're making policy.
Darshan, what do you think about the DREAM Act and the recent actions by the Obama administration to stop deportation of immigrants who arrived as children? Do such policies go too far or not far enough?
That's a great question. As an immigrant, that goes to my heart. I definitely support the DREAM Act. It's time that we need to have a comprehensive immigration reform in this country. I came here from Nepal, and America provided me the opportunity. I worked hard, and like I said, I lived the American dream, and I created and kept jobs in our country. So I contributed to the society. So the people who are coming to America they want to be involved with the community and the society, mess with, become a fabric. And there are a lot of jobs that are out there that, frankly, Americans people don't want to do. For a great example is like in Yakima, the people are, having a hard time finding workers to pick apples. So I'm for a guest worker program that we need to have, people coming and then seasonal, work on a season by season basis and go back to their country. So in terms of Obama's decision, I definitely support that. I don't know whether it's a political decision or not, but I wish he would have made that decision a long time back when he took office in 2009. Deporting children of undocumented workers, undocumented citizens, undocumented people is not right. So I think we need to have a comprehensive immigration reform, and we need to keep attracting the people that has a highly skilled work, like Microsoft is a great example. And then we need to focus on education also, so that we have a highly skilled workforce here.
Thank you. John Koster, what do you think about Border Patrol behavior? Are they upholding the law, or have they gone too far? Do they have enough support to do the job that we have asked them to do?
I think our Border Patrol has a support to do the job that they need to do. I think there may be isolated incidences, perhaps, of where they've maybe gone a little bit far, but for the most part, I think they do a pretty darn good job. I don't need 90 seconds on that one.
Okay, but would you like to tell us instances where they've gone too far?
I think we had an instance up on the Canadian border, I think, where I felt that maybe they went a little bit far, but there was error on both sides of that one. I think maybe it wasn't so much the Border Patrol as it was the the federal attorney that prosecuted the case that went a little further, I think, than was necessary in that point.
Okay, thank you. Steve Hobbs, based on your experience, what do you think is the most effective role for unions in Washington's economy?
I think the effective role of unions is to protect the worker themselves, to be part of the collective bargaining process, to bargain for wages and health care, to take part in the political process, much like any other organization. So I've always been a supporter of labor, though there are times when I may be against them on certain issues, but I believe they have a very important spot in America.
Thank you. Susan Del Bene, given your background, how are you going to connect with middle-class voters? What policies will you enact to create more jobs and help the middle class?
I think my background is the background of many people who are struggling today in our district, in our state, and in our country, of folks who are struggling to find work, the instability that causes, the financial uncertainty, and also just the issues of confidence and pride and dignity that you don't have, and I know my parents struggled with when they weren't able to work and take care of their family. So that's really, I think when I talk to folks, we relate on that every time, but there are things that we can do to get ourselves on a strong path. We need to build the foundation for a strong economy. That means investments in infrastructure so that we have great transportation of people and goods. Part of our infrastructure is our educational system. Everyone should have access to a great education from early learning, K through 12, all the way through higher education, technical college, so that you have the opportunity to pursue what you want to pursue. And so policies to make sure that we fund education, to make sure that people have equal opportunity to get a great education. And then I think we need to make sure that we put policies together to help businesses to grow and expand and for innovation to happen. I know, having started up a business that came out of the University of Washington, how important that connection is between our educational system and basic research and our private sector. But I also know how important it is that we don't have people being forced to fill out zillions and zillions of forms just to start up a business to get going. So we need to streamline, we need to support growth of new industries, and I think that experience that I bring to the table helps us to put policies together to do that.
Thank you very much. Darcy Berner, you have made diverse statements about the Affordable Care Act, including fighting for a single-payer plan, then coming around to saying it's a partial solution. Given the recent Supreme Court ruling, what do you see next in health care?
So the Affordable Care Act gets us part of the way there. It makes it easier for people who need to buy insurance and who don't have the kind of insurance that Microsoft provides its employees to do so. As somebody who buys individual health insurance right now, I'm greatly looking forward to having exchanges where I can actually compare the plans and figure out which plan I want to get. I'm greatly looking forward to my siblings being able to get subsidies to buy health insurance plans that they can't otherwise afford. I'm looking forward to not having to pay twice as much because I'm a woman, which is true in most of the country for health insurance. That is progress. There's more that we need to do, and one of the most important things we need to do is we need to make sure that all Americans have at least one good choice. I fought really hard to try to get a public option as part of the bill because I think every American should have at least one choice that the insurance companies don't control. It does a tremendous amount to address the deficit. It makes it easier for people to get health insurance they know they can rely on that's not going to be canceled. And it would actually help drive down costs for everyone buying health insurance because it would provide a level of competition for the insurance companies that doesn't otherwise exist. It's just good policy. So I think that the next obvious thing to do to build on the Affordable Care Act is to make it possible for everyone to buy into an option that the insurance companies don't control.
Thank you. We're going to go to the audience questions now, and we'd like you to meet Jessica Jones, and she's got the roving mic. And so if you want to ask a question, we do ask that you keep it to a question and not a statement and say who it's for. So we'll go right to that. Do you have one? And please say your name first.
Oh, I don't get to hold the mic.
No, we keep control.
Okay, so I have a question for Laura Ruderman. I have several friends who are in medical school right now, and I'm following very closely the Affordable Care Act. I'm specifically interested in how someone might be able to encourage more people to go into primary care physicians as opposed to more lucrative practices, but we need more primary care to try to actually reduce the amount of healthcare costs we have. So I'd be interested to hear your comments on that.
I'm looking to see how fast I have to answer. So I think that's a great question. And one of the big drivers of one of the things that we need to do to reduce the healthcare costs in general is to try and get back to an emphasis on primary care and also make use of our physician's assistants and our ARNPs. One of the big drivers about how health insurance is reimbursed is Medicare and how Medicare's reimbursement rates, and the committee that sets those reimbursement rates does not have a single primary care physician on it. So guess who gets really great reimbursement rates and guess who doesn't? We need to reform the way that Medicare reimburses physicians, which will help make those reimbursement rates for primary care physicians a little bit better, which will help encourage people to go into the primary care aspect of it, but also, and then will also help, as we all like to say, bend that cost curve down. Thank you for asking a wonky healthcare policy question. I am a policy wonk when it comes to healthcare and would love to talk with you more about it afterwards.
Jessica.
Paul Raju from Redmon, Washington. My question is this: how can we achieve gun control without impacting the Second Amendment rights so that students like Holmes would not be in a position to buy attack weapons and ammunition worth of tens and thousands of dollars?
Who is your question for?
Anybody want to?
Oh. All right, Darcy's waving her hand here, so she's got it.
I've been out there on this question. So the Second Amendment rights don't say that everybody can have their own tactical nuclear weapon. They don't suggest that everybody can have their own B-2 bomber. There is clearly a line somewhere. The line used to be that we had an assault weapons ban that restricted the kinds of weapons people could have and the number of rounds that were allowed in a single clip. James Holmes had an assault rifle with a 100-round drum. And had it not jammed, many, many, many more people would have died. Now, I'm not anti-Second Amendment. I actually own a gun. I have a Car PM9 handgun, have had a concealed carry permit, which is a weapon of self-defense. Hunters have the right to go hunting. But I'm pretty sure the only thing that you hunt with an AK-47 is dragons.
I have to call time. Next. You're on a... Hi.
Hi, Rosemary Ives, Mayor Emerita of Redmond, and now a student, it's great to have free time, of federal subsidies. So I'm going to make this really simple because you can use your little cards. Yes, no,
extra
or
waffle stuff?
Hey, I've been there.
Awesome.
I've done this before. The country is in the midst of unprecedented financial crisis. Congress seems very resistant to serious course correction, especially when it comes to legislation. Bills are complex, they're convoluted, there's a myriad of issues and funding. So the two questions are, and we'll do one at a time. Yes, no, or waffle. My vote, your vote. We're in this together. Do you support single issue legislation?
You know.
Yes, no.
Depends on what it is.
Hold them up so everybody can see. Thank you.
Are you? Maybe that's a waffle. And then number two, do you support earmarks?
It's not the way she asked it. It's not the way she asked it. So let's go to another question.
Can I answer that question more? Do a follow-on answer?
We'll see if we have time. Go ahead.
I have a question for Laura. Well, no, actually, I have a question for Suzanne Delbeni. I want to know how many millions of your dollars of your own money are you willing to put into this campaign to get that seat?
When I went into this race, I told everyone that I was willing to make an investment in my race because I believe that if I'm going to ask others to support my campaign, I should do my part. And that's my belief, and that has been my belief going forward. My campaign and my focus has been to give people an option for a candidate who has real-world experience, who has experience getting results, and we've been out telling my story to everyone, and I think voters decide based on the story and the experience of the candidates, and that's our focus has been always on that. But I also say that we have a super PAC right now that has been basically exclusively attacking me.
Not true. They attacked me as well.
I said basically.
No fighting. No fighting.
And I do think that I believe very strongly in campaign finance reform, and I believe strongly that we need to take action against Citizens United so that we do have a system where we don't have shadowy super PACs out there where you don't know where the information is coming from.
Jessica.
Hi, my name is Grant Bronston. I'm 18 years old, and my question's for any candidate that really feels strongly about this issue. As a recent high school graduate, I spent 12 years in the public school system, and I'd love to hear what your plans are for reforming the national education system and specifically your thoughts on No Child Left Behind.
Okay, so somebody who hasn't, would you like to go? Go ahead.
Sure. So I like to say that, education is the foundation for success. Education is what brought me to this country, and I'm the only candidate in this race. I have laid out my plan for K through 12. And I go out and talk to a lot of students, and they are giving up hopes. They said, why should I go to college? College is so unaffordable today. And then I can't even get a job. There are so many people out of job today. So what I like to do when I become congressman is to introduce a legislation that will cap a tuition rate for incoming freshmen for 4 years. We can't have student, the tuition rate increased by 15%, 30% that they can't afford. And they are saddled with a student loan for the rest of their lives. And the parents can't afford it. So it's time that we need to really focus on a higher education. And also we need to learn from countries like Singapore and Norway, Denmark, why they are the countries that have the best of the best educational system in the world. So we should be able to adapt those education system and really run a pilot program in our district and then change the curriculum so that we are producing the highly qualified, highly skilled workforce that is needed in the 21st century.
You're back there.
Hi, this question is for Susan Del Bene. Recently, over 150 local businesses in the San Juan Islands sent a letter to the president in support of his use of the Antiquities Act to declare a national monument in the islands to support or to protect public lands up there. It's really important for the local economy throughout the First District to have outdoor recreation opportunities. And I'm wondering if you support the president's use of the Antiquities Act to protect lands when Congress can't act.
I do. I think that we have an incredible environment in our country, and specifically right here in Washington State. And I believe that we have incredible environmental wilderness area, or environmental beauties and wilderness areas right in our own backyard. And that's what makes living here a joy. I hope most people feel it's a joy. I know sometimes people get tired of all the rain, but, and so we need to do a great job of protecting our environment, protecting our wilderness areas, but also I believe that we can do that and have a strong economy. I disagree with this idea that it's the environment or the economy. I actually think we can do both, and there's a lot of great work we can do in clean energy in specific to help grow the economy and make sure we continue to protect our beautiful spaces.
So we have time for 2 more questions.
This question's for John Koster. My name is Greg Rivas. Grover Norquist has the Republican Party pretty much in this pocket. He makes them sign, vast majority, that no tax pledge. Will you sign that pledge? And if you would, how is that going to make you an honest broker when you go into negotiations?
Thank you for asking that question. I have signed that in previous campaigns. I will not sign it this year. And there's a reason for that. And it kind of lends to the question that Joni asked when she kept going up. I noticed that she didn't go down. The answer would have been the same. No, we need fundamental tax reform. I think when it comes to the corporations, while we need to lower their corporate tax rates, we need to close the loopholes. I have people in my district who are wealthy business people who make a ton of money who have come to me and said, John, we need to close the loopholes. You can lower the corporate rates, close the loopholes. I'll probably pay a little more. That's okay. I'm willing to pay my fair share. So we need fundamental tax reform. If by signing Grover Norquist's pledge, they're going to use it against me by saying closing those loopholes is somehow a tax increase, I won't sign it. And it's the reason I've not signed it this year.
Okay, and the final question.
All right, fine. Yes, this one would be for Mr. Hobbs. I wonder if you would give us a sense of what is your plan to preserve Medicare for future generations.
Right. Right now, with the rising cost, right now with all that's going on in Washington, D.C. in terms of the budget and everything, right now I am really concentrating on the Affordable Care Act itself. I'm really concentrating on the rising cost of health care and that aspect. What people don't understand about the Affordable Care Act is that every state must set up an exchange. If you don't set up an exchange, one shall be basically forced upon you in that particular state. My effort would be, and I would hope it would be the same of any one of us that gets up there, is to make sure that the state's exchanges are supported, because some of that is tied to federal funding, and so that would be my main focus.
Thank you all, and we are going to give you some time to do a closing statement. That's the good news. The bad news is it's 30 seconds. And so, and we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, so that means you, Lauren.
I'll stand up for the last 30 seconds. Thank you all for being here. I just want to leave you with this thought. I am running for Congress because I believe that if you are willing to show up every day and work hard, there ought to be a job there for you to show up to. It ought to pay a living wage, provide health insurance, and let you take time off if you get sick or have a family emergency. But for too many of our families in America today, that is not an option. There is no job there for them. I am running for Congress because I believe that it is beyond time, because my time has run up. If you want to know more, go to lauraruderman.org.
Well done. Well done, and Chris Bender. Okay. For 30 seconds. We're not kidding.
Okay, so I want you to know that I never thought of running for an office. I love this country. I love the people. They provided the opportunity. That opportunity does not exist today. So I think we need to really stand up and say that we need to send somebody like us, among us, to Congress to bring about the change. And we need to be that paradigm shift that is so much needed in Congress. We can't continue to elect same politician again and again and expect a different results. This country is not what it was 20 years ago, so it's time that we already need to really be that change.
Thank you.
Do I get to stand now? Hey.
I
I'll reiterate what I started with. I believe the solutions for that this country faces are found in the people, not in more government and bigger government programs. We need to create an atmosphere that's conducive for people to live their lives free, for business to do business, to create opportunities for everybody. And, you know, as far as working together, I got to say something. In the Snohomish County Council, 95% of our votes are unanimous. And you know why? Because we're focused on good public policy, and we can't punt. We have to make decisions. It's about good public policy for America.
Congress is broken, and we need someone up there who's had the proven experience to step up the plate and go against even your party's interest. Right now, it's about country first and party second. I've done it multiple times, and we need someone who represents the people of the 1st Congressional District, someone who was born and raised there, someone who understands the needs and wants of the folks there. And I believe I'm the best person.
I think it's incredibly important that we stand up for working families and make sure that everyone has access to economic opportunity, the same chance that I had. I think that we need someone who has the experience, the values, and the focus on getting results to really make a difference. This isn't about talk, it's also about action and getting results. And so we need someone who understands how the public and the private sector can work together to get results and to get change for all of us in our country and right here in Washington State.
We have a fundamental problem in this country right now, which is that what we refer to as the 1% have a chokehold on the future of our country. They don't think the rules apply to them. Bankers in Wall Street destroyed our economy and haven't gone to jail. Nobody has held them accountable. And even in this race, we have most of us who have been playing by the same set of rules, and one person who decided rather than to raise the money for the election, she would try to buy it. You have a choice. You can send somebody who will fight for a level playing field for everyone, or you can continue to support the 1%.
I want to thank everybody for spending this time with us. I want to thank the candidates for keeping it civil. This was a really good debate, and this is Diane Douglas.
Here you go.
Thanks to everyone for coming. Thanks to Microsoft, our great partners, Mike and Aaron. Thanks to all the candidates for your service to our state. Stay tuned for more event coverage and political coverage through the season. We hope you stay tuned to City Club. Thank you.
Remember that.